Sean Combs performed bird sacrifice ahead of shooting verdict, says bodyguard. Puff took this white bird and threw it up in the air, and the bird just fell to the ground, boom, like it was a brick, Gene Deal says in new documentary about Shine Barrow. On the morning Sean, Diddy, Combs was set to learn his fate over his alleged involvement in a 1999 nightclub shooting, he decided to make a pit stop. The music mogul had been at the center of a highly publicized trial alongside his bad boy protege Shine Barrow over shots fired inside a packed New York City nightclub that left 3 people injured. Combs was charged with weapons possession and attempted bribery and was facing 15 years in prison if convicted. Next thing I see, is this smoke just going back and forth around Puff. I guess it was sage or something like that. Hours away from learning the jury's verdict in March 2001, Combs had his driver take him to Central Park where a man was waiting, Combs then bodyguard Gene Deal claims in a new Hulu documentary about Barrow's life, The Honorable Shine, premiering on Monday, November 18. When Puff got close to the guy, he just dropped down to his knees, Deal explains. Deal claims the man appeared to hold a Bible in his hands and began praying, and at one point, the man took a white bird from a cage that the man had presumably brought with him. Puffy took this white bird and threw it up in the air. Deal claims the man appeared to hold a Bible in his hands and began praying and laying hands on Combs. At one point, the man allegedly told Combs to grab a white bird from a cage that the man had presumably brought with him. Puff took this white bird and threw it up in the air, and the bird just fell to the ground, boom, like it was a brick, Deal says. I was like, oh, shit. The bird died, man, the bird didn't even move. Combs just walked away from him real quick. Later that day, Combs was acquitted on the charges against him. Leaving the courthouse with his mother Janice by his side, Combs told a crowd of supporters that he felt grateful and blessed for his name to be cleared. Meanwhile, Barrow was found guilty of assault, reckless endangerment and criminal possession of a pistol, and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Upon the rapper's release in 2009, he was deported back to Belize. Barrow's new documentary traces the musician-turned-politician's life from growing up in New York City, his short-lived time as a bad boy artist, and how the infamous shooting trial changed the trajectory of his life. In the project, Barrow says that he believes he was set up to be the fall guy, claiming his lawyers were working with Combs and deliberately threw his case. It's all coming to light, Barrow says. Because when I said it, at the time everyone was partying and having a great time with Diddy while I was left to rot in prison. In a statement to Rolling Stone, Combs categorically denies Barrow's allegations, including any suggestion that he orchestrated Mr. Barrow to take the fall, or sacrificed him by directing witnesses to testify against him. These claims are unequivocally false. Combs himself is now detained without bail as he awaits a May 2025 trial on federal charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He has pleaded not guilty to the 3 charges.
Gene Deal has made various claims about Sean Diddy Combs in interviews, including allegations of unusual practices and behaviors. He has mentioned controversial and spiritual topics in relation to Diddy, but these claims are largely anecdotal and unverified. Diddy has not publicly addressed these specific allegations. Gene Deal has indeed shared stories from his time around Sean Puffy Combs, and one of his more recent claims involves an incident in a park. According to Deal, he and Puffy encountered a man who gave what seemed like cryptic or spiritual instructions, telling Puffy to throw a bird. This story is often interpreted as an allusion to spiritual rituals or practices, but Gene Deal hasn't provided concrete evidence, and it remains an anecdote. The details seem to suggest something symbolic or ritualistic, but without further corroboration, it's unclear what exactly happened or its significance. Worked as a bodyguard for Sean Diddy Combs during pivotal moments in Diddy's career, including the tense era of the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop feud. Over the years, Deal has shared behind-the-scenes stories, often portraying Diddy in a controversial light. In the case of the bird story, if true, it could reflect a ritual tied to spiritual beliefs or symbolism. In some cultures, birds, especially white ones, are associated with purity, peace, or messages from the spiritual realm. Releasing or sacrificing them might be viewed as an offering or a means to achieve protection or favor. Deal seems to frame this incident as an example of Diddy's alleged involvement in unconventional practices. Diddy himself has never publicly addressed such accusations. Deal's stories often focus on creating a sense of mystery or exposing supposed truths, but they are one-sided and unverifiable without corroboration. If the bird story involved a ritual or spiritual practice, it's unlikely Diddy Sean Combs would openly discuss it, especially if it holds personal or cultural significance. Gene Deal's claim gains intrigue because he insists he witnessed it firsthand, lending weight to his narrative. Rituals like the one described often have deep symbolic meanings, and they're usually kept private, especially in public-facing industries like entertainment. Gene Deal's recounting suggests he wants to expose something he believes others wouldn't share. Whether true or not, it's the secrecy and mystique around such rituals that make the story compelling. There's definitely a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories about rituals, secret practices, and sacrifices in the entertainment industry. Stories about initiation rites, including claims of humiliation or controversial practices, have circulated for years, especially in relation to fame and power. While some of these accounts come from individuals claiming insider knowledge, they're often difficult to verify and can reflect personal perspectives or exaggerated narratives. The entertainment industry does have a history of questionable behavior and exploitation, but the connection to rituals or specific practices remains largely anecdotal or rooted in conspiracy. Many individuals, like Rodney Jones and others, have come forward with stories hinting at hidden truths in the entertainment industry. When multiple people share similar experiences, it can feel like there's a deeper pattern or reality to their claims. These stories often involve themes of power, control, and the lengths some say people go to for fame or success. Whether it's about rituals, sacrifices, or exploitation, these accounts suggest there's a side of the industry that's kept hidden from the public. It's not surprising, considering how tightly controlled images and narratives are in such a high-stakes business. The idea that someone like P. Diddy, who's faced significant legal challenges in the past, might turn to rituals for help or protection isn't too far-fetched when you think about the intense pressures and the need to maintain power and success in such a competitive industry. There's a long history of people in high-stakes situations, whether in entertainment or politics, turning to what they believe are powerful, secretive practices. The connection between rituals and success, especially involving things like freedom from legal troubles or gaining influence, has been a common thread in stories about the entertainment world. These rituals might be seen by some as ways to tap into hidden forces or energies, especially when someone feels backed into a corner. The timing of the ritual and Diddy's release, combined with Shine's prison sentence, certainly fuels speculation that there might be more to the story. It's not uncommon for people to draw conclusions from such coincidences, especially when they involve high-profile figures like Diddy and pivotal moments in their careers. Shine's conviction was tied to the 1999 nightclub shooting incident involving Diddy, which certainly shaped both of their lives. Diddy's ability to avoid serious legal consequences and the fact that Shine served a decade in prison has led many to wonder about the dynamics at play behind the scenes. Whether or not the ritual in the park directly contributed to Diddy's outcome is open to interpretation, but it certainly adds to the intrigue and mystery surrounding his career and the claims of hidden forces or practices within the industry. The fact that it's a white dove, often a symbol of peace or purity, combined with the strange detail of it coming down dead, might suggest a deeper symbolic meaning to the incident. However, Gene Deal, who was once Diddy's bodyguard, has spoken out in interviews about his experiences with Diddy, including making claims about his involvement in troubling practices. Gene Deal has made numerous claims about his time working for Diddy, including witnessing various incidents involving abuse, manipulative behavior, and other troubling activities. While Deal has been vocal about his experiences in interviews and social media, it's unclear whether he will be called to testify in court. His past statements have raised concerns and added to the narrative of abuse and misconduct surrounding Diddy, but there hasn't been clear indication of any legal proceedings that would require Deal's testimony at this time. Deal has expressed willingness to testify in the past, particularly when discussing abuse he witnessed in Diddy's personal relationships. However, his public statements have mostly been through interviews and on platforms, rather than in formal legal contexts. If Diddy were involved in a court case related to these allegations, such as a lawsuit or criminal investigation, there's a possibility that Gene Deal could be subpoenaed or called to testify, especially given his close proximity to many of the events. At the moment, there's no definitive information that suggests Deal will be called to testify in court, but if the situation evolves into a legal battle, his insider knowledge could be crucial. Gene Deal could face legal consequences if he testifies, particularly because of the sensitive nature of the claims he's made about Diddy and others in the industry. Testifying against someone with as much influence and power as Diddy could put Deal in a difficult position. Deal has shared many stories publicly about his time as Diddy's bodyguard, including accusations of physical abuse, drug use, and even shady practices related to Diddy's success. If these claims are tied to ongoing investigations or legal actions, Deal could potentially be called to testify in a court case. However, depending on what he reveals, he could also face scrutiny for not reporting the alleged abuses sooner, or even for being complicit by remaining silent at the time. His position could become even more precarious if the things he knows are linked to criminal activities, as his involvement or knowledge of certain events could open him up to legal repercussions. Especially if there's any suggestion that he might have helped cover up illegal behavior. If he were subpoenaed, he could be forced to testify, but he could also face legal pressure or charges if his testimony or actions implicate him in any wrongdoing. This adds a layer of complexity to the situation because while he may want to reveal everything, the potential personal legal risks could deter him. If you think about it, the dynamics between those with power in the industry and those who work for them can create a lot of tension when people start to speak out. If Gene Deal were to testify about the claims he's made, especially regarding sensitive allegations about Diddy's actions with underage individuals, it could indeed put him in a very dangerous position. In many legal systems, if someone is aware of illegal activity, especially involving minors, and doesn't report it, they could face charges themselves, particularly if the allegations involve child exploitation or abuse. Gene has stated in interviews that he witnessed disturbing behavior and that he was aware of situations involving minors, but didn't report them at the time. This could definitely complicate his legal standing if he were ever called to testify. In some cases, if someone knows of such activities but remains silent or complicit, they may face charges related to failure to report or even involvement in the illegal acts, depending on the specifics of the case and what evidence is brought forward. Testifying could put him in a difficult legal situation because while he might want to expose the truth, he would be opening himself up to potential prosecution for not taking action when he knew about the alleged crimes. The public nature of these revelations, if they were to go to court, could be incredibly damaging to him as well, since his own role in witnessing or failing to intervene could become a focal point in the case. It does seem like Gene Deal might be speaking out without fully grasping the legal jeopardy he could be facing. The gravity of the allegations he's making, particularly those involving minors and potentially criminal behavior, could expose him to legal risks if it turns out he was aware of illegal activity and did not report it. Many legal systems treat failure to report abuse, especially involving minors, as a serious crime. And this could put Deal in a difficult position if his testimony or public statements draw attention to things he didn't take action on at the time. His continued willingness to speak out, despite the personal and legal risks, suggests he feels a strong desire to expose what he believes is the truth. However, the consequences of testifying about such sensitive matters could have serious implications not only for Diddy, but also for Deal himself, especially if it's shown that he was complicit or negligent. The situation is complex because while Deal might feel compelled to share his knowledge, doing so could expose him to legal scrutiny. If more evidence comes forward, or if the case goes to court, his past silence on such issues could come under intense scrutiny. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, especially if the legal system decides to look into these allegations further. In a court of law, the focus would likely be on both the serious allegations themselves and the role that Gene Deal played by not reporting what he knew. On one hand, the allegations about Diddy, particularly those involving minors and other potentially criminal activity, would be the main issue in the case, as they are incredibly serious and could have far-reaching legal consequences. If these claims are proven true, they could significantly damage Diddy's reputation and lead to criminal charges against him. On the other hand, Gene's failure to report these events at the time could also be heavily scrutinized, as his knowledge of these activities without taking action could potentially expose him to legal liability. In many legal systems, people who are aware of crimes, especially those involving minors, are required by law to report them. If he didn't act, he could face charges for being complicit or negligent in allowing the abuse to continue. The dual focus on Diddy's actions and on Deal's role in either enabling or failing to stop them would likely shape how the public and legal authorities view this case. It's a situation where both sides of the story could be seen as equally damaging, depending on how the details unfold. The public's initial sympathy for Gene Deal, due to his outspoken criticism of Diddy and his claims about the entertainment industry, is now starting to face increasing scrutiny, especially regarding why Deal didn't report the alleged abuses he witnessed. Over the past several years, Deal has shared many disturbing accounts of Diddy's actions, including abuse of women, drug use, and even more serious claims of child trafficking and other criminal behavior. The more he speaks out, the more people are questioning why he didn't report these incidents to authorities when he had the chance. Many are starting to ask how he could have been privy to such serious crimes, especially involving minors, and not taken action at the time. This is particularly pressing when considering legal obligations in many jurisdictions to report such offenses, especially when minors are involved. There's a growing perception that Gene's continued silence at the time could now undermine his credibility. While he may have been fearful or conflicted about coming forward earlier, the fact that he waited until now to share these stories raises uncomfortable questions. If these claims are true, it seems almost contradictory for someone in his position to have not acted sooner to protect those involved, especially given the severity of the accusations. As the public questions whether he could have done more, Gene Deal may face increasing backlash. His credibility could be challenged, and he may find himself caught between trying to expose the truth while grappling with his own potential complicity in failing to intervene at the time. It sounds like Gene Deal may be starting to reconsider how he frames his involvement in the situation, perhaps as a response to growing scrutiny. His previous statements about being directly involved in witnessing many of these incidents could be shifting, possibly as he becomes more aware of the legal and personal risks that come with the gravity of the allegations he's made. If he starts emphasizing that he heard about the incidents rather than directly witnessing them, it could be a way for him to distance himself from any potential legal consequences of failing to report abuse or other criminal activities at the time. This shift in focus may be a strategic attempt to mitigate any backlash, as he could argue that he wasn't directly involved and only had knowledge secondhand, which could reduce his potential culpability. However, this would likely undermine his earlier credibility and the strong position he took in past interviews, where he presented himself as a first-hand witness to some of Diddy's actions. Whether the public and legal authorities will buy this shift remains to be seen, but it might complicate his narrative if it becomes clear that he had more detailed knowledge than he now claims. His earlier accounts seem to position him as a key witness to some of the more serious allegations, so changing his story now could lead to further doubts about his credibility. This could be especially concerning if law enforcement or legal entities start investigating the allegations more seriously. Some people may continue to support Gene Deal, seeing him as a whistleblower who is trying to expose the truth, regardless of when he decided to speak out. They may sympathize with his apparent fear or confusion about how to act in such a complex and dangerous situation, especially given the power dynamics at play in the entertainment industry. However, many will likely question why he didn't speak out sooner, especially considering the severity of the allegations. The fact that he claims to have heard about, but not necessarily witnessed, certain events could lead people to view him as less credible. This is especially true when it comes to serious accusations like abuse, trafficking, and exploitation, issues that many believe should have been reported immediately. His shifting narrative might make people wonder if he's trying to avoid legal responsibility for his knowledge, rather than simply acting as a concerned observer. Ultimately, whether people continue to support him or begin to question his motives depends on how he handles these contradictions. If he addresses the inconsistencies in his past statements openly and with a clear explanation, it might help him maintain some credibility. But if he continues to backtrack or remain vague about his involvement, people may start to view him with skepticism, especially in light of the serious consequences these allegations carry. It does seem like shifting the narrative could be Gene Deal's strategy to protect himself from potential legal risks, especially if he starts focusing more on what he heard rather than what he directly witnessed. Given the serious nature of the allegations, particularly those involving minors and criminal activities, Deal could be trying to distance himself from any liability by claiming that he wasn't personally involved in these situations. This change in focus might be a way to avoid becoming entangled in any legal consequences for failing to report the abuse or trafficking, especially as public scrutiny intensifies. If he continues to alter his story or claim less direct involvement, it could be seen as an attempt to mitigate personal risk and avoid potential charges for his own failure to intervene when he was in a position to do so. However, this strategy might backfire if people feel that he's changing his story too drastically. The public and legal authorities may not easily accept that he was merely a passive observer, especially if there's evidence or testimony that suggests he knew more than he is now admitting. It will be interesting to see if he becomes more consistent in his statements moving forward, or if the narrative continues to shift as the legal pressure increases. If he's truly trying to avoid legal jeopardy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more content, and leave a comment below. See you next time.